Hi everyone! In this section we are going to be looking at notation and conceptual understanding of inequalities. We'll look at how the connections we made in the previous outlines to real-life application can be transformed into concise mathematical notation using symbols, number lines, and graphing. Take great care to note the little details. This will help one be successful in grasping the big picture. Let's look at some of the big ideas as a review. So for the first one, let's talk about the greater than. Greater than could be represented with a open parenthesis or a parenthesis opening to the right, a open dot with an arrow toward the right, a inequality pointing to the right, and we could also say things like more than to represent this. We could also say greater than, but that's already there. All right, so now let's take a look at less than. Less than could be a parenthesis that we call it a closed parenthesis, or you could say opening to the left. An open dot with an arrow moving to the left, a inequality symbol pointing to the left, and things like is smaller than would be a way to define that in words. Greater than or equal to has quite a few ways of using symbols and also words. So for a greater than or equal to, we have a bracket opening to the right, a closed dot opening to the right with an arrow, or pointing to the arrow points to the right, a inequality symbol pointing to the right but with a bar below it to define the equal to part. We could also see words that describe this scenario, such as at least, including, and then they'll usually say the number, or they'll say a number and everything larger. These are all ways to describe a greater than or equal to. Less than or equal to is similar. We have a closed bracket, a closed dot with an arrow to the left, and an inequality with a bar under it pointing to the left. Similar to greater than or equal to, we would say at most, including, and then that number. Any number smaller, so a number, or I guess it would be and every number smaller. This is just a review. You're welcome to find more words that would describe this situation. The more that you have done some research on this, the better, because this is something that will come up in all different forms. All different notations are used throughout many textbooks based on the context, and so it's really important to see all the different notations for intervals, for open dots, closed dots, on number lines, for inequality statements. Those are all very important ways to define a list or an interval of numbers. So take some time now to reflect on what we have just covered. Think about what you understand and what you really want to learn about inequalities. This seems like maybe busy work to some of you, but I really encourage you to sit there by yourself and ask yourself, do I truly understand this, or am I just writing it down and not actually letting it sink in? Do you really truly have questions about this? And if so, what are they? If you don't feel like you have questions, at least say, I don't think I have questions about everything on this page. I'll be applying it to make sure I understand. Something like that. Make sure you're filling this in. And then make sure you take a minute to list at least one question you still have about inequalities.